I'm Jonathan Wrench. I'm the Director of Admissions at Wyoming Catholic College. I'm sitting here today with the Acting Academic Dean of the college, Professor Kyle Washut, who's been with the college in one capacity or another ever since the college's founding. I'm also sitting with Dr. Jeremy Holmes, the Associate Professor of Theology. Dr. Holmes has the distinction of having taught every single graduate of the college. We're going to break down the admissions process piece by piece, ask some questions, get some anecdotes, really unpack some wisdom from these two fine gentlemen. Can both of you give us some insight into what the admissions committee, what weight is that high school transcript given?
Yeah, so I think the first thing we want to think about is what's on the transcript. All right, as you're thinking about maybe what classes to take in high school, it's worth just remembering that there's a assumed body of knowledge that is pretty standard for college prep courses. That includes math at least up through Algebra 2, ideally up into trig, some pre-calc, at least 2 years of hard sciences with some lab component, certainly 4 years of English, working on your writing, developing the skills you need to be able to write at a college level and read at a college level, ideally 2 years of foreign language, and some history. And that's sort of a nice standard package to assume as you're thinking in your junior year, do I take this extra elective in shop and blow off Algebra 2? If you want to go to college, it's really better that you do the Algebra 2. It's also cool to do shop, but make sure you're filling out on these courses you need to take.
For each part of the application package, people should think of the application as a kind of whole in which the parts support each other. So ideally, for example, a letter of reference might be telling us something about the school he was at or his teachers, or maybe you might get a letter of reference from that math teacher who will say, I flunked 50% of my students and he got a C, he's amazing, or give us that backstory, right?
So if you do an AP course and you take the standard test and you get a certain score on your standard test of the AP course, there's a kind of universal understanding of what that means.
Okay.
There's a minimum standard for what the AP course is. And so even though we don't accept transfer credits from the AP courses, like some institutions do, there's a way that just communicates to us by at least a known measure how well you've done in the course. So that'd be an advantage. On the flip side, if there's challenges that you know about that your transcript brings to it, so you're from a school that weights their GPA, okay, that's already going to be really difficult for us to understand how in the world we're going to interpret what your GPA is. And so you should note that and think of what other things do you add to your application to help us contextualize. So you might know my school has a weighted GPA, but I've added piece X, Y, and Z to show you that weight doesn't give you a false impression of my merit.
And you might say the same thing for things on the transcript that are going to jump out, like maybe you got an F in French. Ooh, tell us that story. To explain to us, make sure we know why that's not something we should worry about. If all your grades are sort of vanilla flavored, that no one of them might need any comment. But if you've got something where you actually think to yourself, I wonder what they're going to think of that, or alternatively, boy, they'll never know what it took to get this grade. In either of those cases, you're writing a letter of application, go into it for us.
One question we get all the time is a student is interested in our program because of the theology, the philosophy, and the literature, or the humanities program more generally. And so we can have a little bit of trouble encouraging them to pursue math and science in their junior and senior year of high school. What argument is to be made for pursuing those harder math and science courses if one has one's eyes on WCC?
There are levels of argument, right? The baseline is we actually have math and science here and you could die. You could get into the course, and if you don't have a command of basic algebra, experience has shown that is a painful way to go. So if you can get that command before you get here, just at a very practical level, you will be a happier camper at Wyoming Catholic College.
Another question that we often get, particularly from families who are homeschooling their children, is, okay, I've homeschooled my child and now I need to prepare a transcript. I've never done this before. What advice do we give to those families?
If you're personally preparing the transcript, you can go ahead and throw in there not only took English, but give us a list of books. Show us what was in each course, a reading list for each course. That's super helpful. Then we know, for example, you did history. Does that mean you did a short textbook? Or maybe you actually did a fairly big thing with a meaty textbook and a bunch of parallel reading from original source? Yeah. Give us the list. That's really helpful. The other thing that homeschoolers can do to really outstrip what is normally done on a standard transcript is they can tell us a little bit about how the grading happened. Mm-hmm. So if the person takes a history course at a high school, were the final exams all multiple choice, focused on details? Or were the final exams essays focused on big ideas? We don't know. How did the teacher choose to grade this course? But mom preparing the transcript for her one kid going off to college right now, she can sit down and tell us, this is how the grading went down in this course. This is what we did. And sometimes that's just simply informative. Sometimes it's actually pretty crucial.
The next topic that we want to dive into is letters of reference.
If you are in a giant high school with thousands and thousands of other students, you need to seek out, if you don't have one already, and find a mentor that you can work with. Someone that you're going to make sure he knows your name, he knows about you, and that you know that you can have him write a letter for you. But that involves establishing the relationship and think about, like, okay, could this person write the letter? What would I need to give him to help write the letter?
The key to a good letter of reference is the key to writing generally. You know, you probably all heard the old adage, show, don't tell. No matter who's writing the letter of reference, be it mom, your teacher, your employer, your state representative, I don't care who. You know, if you have, you know, the President of the United States writing your letter of recommendation, it's not going to mean a lot if he just takes all the best words out of a thesaurus and drops them into a letter and puts a name on it. Because then all he's doing is telling me again and again that this kid is great. What we need is for the letter of reference to show us the kid is great. So, for example, I remember there was a mom who could have told us, my child has always been a good writer. And we'd be writing that, what does that mean? But instead, she told us about how she runs a writing club, and her child has always headed up the writing club and given instruction to all the other homeschool kids in the neighborhood and guided them through the essay writing process. And we were super impressed by finding out, wow, she's not only her own writer, she's actually been teaching writing to other kids her age and younger. That immediately we were excited.
So talk about standardized tests. And standardized tests have gained some prominence in the public debate about education. Nonetheless, at this time, Wyoming Catholic College still does require a standardized test as part of our admissions process.
We do think it does give us a helpful insight into, does the student have basic grammar? Does the student have some basic reading comprehension? Does the student have some basic math that is necessary for flourishing at college?
And you know, the standardized test has kind of two strengths. One is that while false lows happen all the time, it's very easy for someone to score below what he should have scored.
Right.
False highs are very hard to get. It's very hard to knock the top out of one of these tests without knowing anything. And so if we see a low score, we're going to ask ourselves, where else in the application packet do I see something that would explain why the score is low? Whereas if we see a high score, we're likely to just presume, well, if he knocked the top out of the math on the standardized test, we think he's good at math. That's really good evidence for that.
How much weight does the standardized test have in the overall application for those on the admissions committee looking at a student's overall profile?
If the transcript is generic, if the letters of rec are superlative and
Boilerplate.
vague. If the essay is middle of the road, there's nothing that stands out about that, right? There's no other information we have, then we're gonna have to put a lot of weight on those standardized tests. And as I said, that's partly because they're predictive. People who do poorly will struggle at Wyoming Catholic College. So in the absence of other information, we're gonna have to really rely on those standardized tests. If you put that as a part of the package, certainly again, as Jeremy noted, because we see it's hard to sort of bluff the high end. There's any number of reasons you can do badly, but generally doing well involves actually knowing something. We're even willing to connect that to merit scholarships and other things along those lines. So what should say, it's an important part, but not the only part if you have a strong application.
Moving on from the topic of standardized tests onto the admissions essay. Now, once again, why do we require it? What weight is it carrying in a student's application?
A powerful essay that is grammatically correct, that is interesting to read, that is enjoyable for the admissions committee to read, we are instantly interested in this person.
If you write a fantastic essay, now we've got this general impression, ooh, your school was really, they did a good job. And they probably did a good job elsewhere too.
So, Dean Washut, we have a new scholarship coming out this year. Can you tell us more about it?
This is really an opportunity for us with the Flannery O'Connor Essay Contest to see you from a distance putting forth something creative. And really the goal is creativity. The essay prompts, I think, are delightful. They're meant to be exciting and let you sort of jump out into the fray and create something beautiful.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't end with the part of the application, which is often the last part of any student's application, which is the interview with a faculty member.
The interview, we see the mind working in real time. We interact with you. This is when we get a gauge for your level of zeal, your level of understanding of what we're doing, your level of comfort interacting with the professor. And that's really what we're hoping to get out of that interview. Any questions we have about the application, this is a chance for you to clear them up. But it's also a chance for the professor to make sure this person knows what they're getting into if they come to Wyoming Catholic College.
It's very discouraging if you ask a student a question over the phone and you get a 3-word answer and then they feel like, I just said everything there is to say on this subject, and they just wait for the next question. So where I'm put into the position of sort of going in to pry everything I needed to know out of the student almost by force.
Sure.
It's a lot better if I'm interviewing someone who just begins to volunteer. I ask a question and they answer and give me what I wanted and more than what I wanted. Just that ability to not be shy.
Also, one thing that I've always noted is that students who are ready to talk about their essay, right, that they want to say more about what they've written, interview the best, right? We can turn that conversation into something that sort of wrote question, answer, into a real dialogue about interesting ideas. And I've always found that to be the richest kind of interview in my own experience.
That's a great moment when that interview starts to gravitate around ideas. And then it's like just a conversation between two people who share the truth in common.
Right.
And hey, that's what we're going to do for 4 years.
Right.
And that leaves the teacher thinking, maybe you are for here.
And that I think is key. The best interview is when it actually turns into an experience of the life we live here.
The person who begins to ask questions has dropped the show, admitted ignorance, and made it real, and while at the same time expressed actual interest in what we do. So that's a very helpful moment when the student gets inquisitive.
So, again, as an admissions officer, a question we face all the time is why the integrated curriculum, right? We can talk about that. But the follow-up question to why the integrated curriculum is, oh my gosh, I'm not a whitewater raft guide. I'm not ready for the outdoor component. Or, gosh, I've never read Aristotle. I don't know if I'm ready for the intellectual part of the curriculum. Can we get your perspective on not only why this integrated curriculum, but what the high school student should know about the level of preparation that they need to undertake the WCC education?
life doesn't distinguish out, here's an ethical thing, here's a scientific thing, here is an artistic thing.
Right.
It comes out all in one package.
Right.
The one thing you're seeing is mathematical, scientific, it's got theological elements, ethical problems, it's all in one.
Life is constantly spilling into itself all over the place.
Just coming at you. Now we have to make distinctions in order to study well, but finally you need a unified vision in order not to become some kind of divided person interior.
The minimum that we need you to be physically fit enough that you can actually carry a backpack and do the hiking. We need you, to be able to ride, have the balance necessary to ride a horse. We can deal with a lot of extra stuff, but there's a certain physical minimum that we need, and there's a certain preparation from high school that we need.
Yeah.
If you're applying here and you want to come here, realize you're coming for a huge endeavor, a really big, hard thing, and be ready for that investment. Don't get here and then be surprised that
something's outside your comfort zone.
that this is actually hard. This makes you uncomfortable, because greatness is that way.
So one of the questions I think that easily arises next is, well, okay, I don't need to be a whitewater rafting guide, and I don't need to be, a rocket scientist, but do I at least need to be Catholic? Well, the answer is no, but hands down, yes, this is a Catholic place. You're coming to a Catholic formation. You're coming to a place that is steeped in the Catholic worldview. But we're also confident that even if you're not Catholic, it will benefit you.
And we know that from experience.
Yeah.
We have had students here who have not been Catholic, and they have benefited from the experience because they were willing to sort of just throw themselves into the community and into the education with the same excitement as the people next to them.
Sure.
And everything, even Catholic theology classes, you'll end up getting something great.
Gentlemen, once again, thank you for spending your time with us, giving us your insight.
Thanks for hosting.
For those of you who are joining us for our online seminar that goes live in just 10 minutes, we're very excited that you're able to spend some time with us experiencing that discourse and that dialogue that are marks of our education. We'll see you in a few.